Hello and welcome to a special edition of Straight Talk with me, Sifiso Mahlangu. Today I bring you the leader of the IFP, Mangosuthu Buthelezi. Babu Buthelezi, I welcome you to the show.
Thank you, Ms Mahlangu.
Thank you for sitting down with me. I know you don't do a lot of interviews. Thank you for speaking to me.
Thank you, and thanks for the opportunity you have given to me.
Prince Buthelezi, you've been in the political arena for over 55 years.
Correct.
My opening question for you today is, what is the succession plan? How long do you intend to stay as leader of the Inkatha Freedom Party?
In fact, this subject of the succession plan here amuses me because the media in South Africa reported, for instance, in 2009, I wanted to retire. In 2009, I was very impatient. And what happened then, unfortunately, the party itself said, no, please, just be with us for a couple of years. Then, unfortunately, our national chairman, Ms Vennela de Maupassant, was lured by the ruling party and split the party, and that complicated things for the party, to the extent that I wanted to leave then, but then I was embarrassed by my colleagues who said that, can you run away when your house is burning, So at the conference in December 2012, a resolution was passed by the party convention that we should amend the constitution and have a deputy in preparation for succession, and they said they would ask me, please, to just hang on for a few years, perhaps to take him through the ropes so that he can continue. But it's true that I didn't expect that I was going to stay another 5 years. But in fact, then the problems in the party have been such that, of course, we did very badly, I think, in 2011. And I hanged on, and now that I saw that our party was on a trajectory, I thought, any time now I can do so. In any case, this year is actually the 5th year. There should be an election of a leader anyway. So it's likely that it could be the end of this year. But personally, I wish it was yesterday because, many people of my age are basking in the sun, and I still work as I did 40 years ago, and I just thank God for the constitution He gave me, because actually, if I was frail as my age entitles me to be frail now, I don't think I could be doing the things I'm doing now.
My secondary question then is it possible to reintegrate Ms Vennela de Maupassant back into the party? You say that you were grooming her for the leadership of the IFP. She is now the leader of the NFP. That seems as an opposition party to the IFP.
Well, I must say that quite a number of our comrades who went with the NFP have fortunately returned to the party. Quite a big lot of them. I've been to meetings where I received more than 1,000 of them and so on. So at this rate, I don't know, because we haven't had any discussion with the leader of the NFP. I don't know how she feels about that. But at any rate, those members and leaders of the NFP that have come back to us, we welcome them because they were our comrades and we're in the same boat with them.
But would the IFP be ready and accessible to her if they were to decide to return to the party?
No, but already we're receiving, I think the principle is that even those who have returned, who are in thousands, we've received. So, I mean, any reintegration, even if, in the case, for instance, I personally, I come from the ANC stable, in fact. President
Mandela was your your political principal in the Youth League.
Absolutely, he was, absolutely. And of course, apart from being my leader, he was my friend too, because as you know, if you read books like A Prisoner in the Garden or Conversations with myself, which he has written, you will see that he has published some of the letters that we exchanged while he was in prison. Because I'm just one person who was not a member of the Mandela family that he communicated with. And we communicated until 1989. And he wrote to me because he was concerned about the ANC's People's War. And of course, when Mr. de Klerk invited me to discuss the future, to negotiate, I said that a non-negotiable is that Mr. Mandela and other leaders in jail and also those in exile must return. I would not be part of the negotiation unless they are back. And then, of course, Mr. Mandela was released. And I must say also, without any fear contradiction, that I don't think there's anyone or any party that campaigned for his release more than myself, to the extent that in this big rally that he had in Durban, where he said, throw your guns into the sea, he thanked us publicly for having campaigned for his release. And Mr. de Klerk was modest enough in Parliament in February 1990, when he announced Mr. Mandela's release. He mentioned that me as one person among others who actually influenced him to make the decision to release him.
You and the ANC have a very long history. Many of your men got killed outside of Shell House. So your relationship with the ANC was not just vanilla and roses.
No.
There was a lot of bloodshed there. What do you think of when you consider the days of war, when your soldiers were killed trying to seize what is now Luthuli House?
Actually, I'm very happy, Ms. Mahlangu, that you mentioned the Shell House thing, because there's a lot of what we call confusion about that. Because the people that were killed in Shell House, of which Madiba admitted in Parliament that he had given the instruction to shoot to kill them, were Zulu people who had gone to demonstrate, in support of the king, because the king wanted to know the place of the institution of the monarchy within the democratic dispensation. So actually, there was a controversy about that, because it is true that many of them were members of my party, but it was not an IFP project at all. It was actually a Zulu project, because the king had gone to Pretoria with us, he had gone to Durban with thousands of Zulus, and so it was part of that project, And of course, it is very sad, because things came to that far.
I've read the letters between you and former President Mandela, and I acknowledge the strong relationship that you had, both as freedom fighters and at the time as members of Parliament. But you don't share the same relationship with President Zuma. In fact, I might go so far as to say there's no love lost between the two of you. Prince Buthelezi, what do you think has made the sentiments that you share today with our current president, Mr. Jacob Zuma?
No, I really don't know. I'm sorry to say that what you are saying is true in a way. I would say that I had most cordial relationship with both Madiba and also with Mr. Mbeki as my presidents, under whom I worked, as Minister of Home Affairs for 10 years. But, of course, Mr. Zuma is my homeboy, because he come from Kandla, I come from Mahlabatini, right in the heart of what was called Zululand in the past. But in fact, we behave towards each other like gentlemen, but actually there is no relationships which can be compared to that which I had with Mr. Mbeki and also with Madiba himself.
It's very strange to me, because your home is about 50 minutes from the president's homestead. And as Zulu leaders, I would expect you to share the same events and the same celebrations. you're saying you've never been to Nkandla, you've never been invited to the president's home?
No, the president has never invited me.
Let me turn your attention, Prince Buthelezi, to the politics of 2017. In the ANC, it is the moment that remembers Oliver Tambo. And the standing now is on radical economic transformation to finally bring the South African economy to the hands of the majority. What do you think about the ANC's attempt for radical economic transformation?
I've become very skeptical. Skeptical because when we grew up in the ANC, we all believe in nationalization, including Ms Mandela. You know, I myself went to Dar es Salaam to see President Nyerere because he was the guru of African socialism, Ujamaa. And I wanted to go there and sit at the feet of the master to learn about it. But even then, he had changed his views about it. He gave me his book 10 years after Arusha. And a very interesting conversation took place between me and President Nyerere. When he paid a state visit, he visited my office as Minister of Home Affairs, and he told me a very interesting story that in 1980, when His Excellency Mr. Mugabe was actually installed as Prime Minister, he, Nyerere, said to him, in reference to the economy of Zimbabwe, he said, you have inherited a jewel. Please don't destroy it. Don't do what I did in Tanzania. You know, you see, he had actually realized his mistake about it. When Mr. Mbeki took over, when he introduced his economy, his policy on the economy, he had this GEAR, which is an acronym for Growth, Employment, and Redistribution, GEAR. I was very excited in Parliament. In fact, I went to the podium to praise Mr. Mbeki, and I said that it reminded me of Saul going to Damascus, that now ANC was actually realizing that, you know, we need to do enter into the free market. So, but then after that, then there was Askisa. Then Mr. Zuma, to his credit, has come up with the National Development Plan, which right across parties, all of us support. You know, one
policy
tree
to
the
policy,
other,
you mean? From GEAR to Askisa and now to radical economic transformation.
Quite so.
Yeah. But you know, Prince Buthelezi, I really believe in the model of radical economic transformation.
Yes.
I've really studied it, and as a political analyst, believe that it will work. Do you not think that your skepticism lies on the political lines, that you consider that as an opposition leader, and for that matter you oppose politically and not from policy?
But I was saying that, you know, chop and change is the only thing I criticize. And as far as I'm concerned, like, I think all of us as black people do think that there is urgency about radical, you know, economic transformation. But, you know, I'm just worried about all the other things that have been proffered and not implemented. That's all. But we want to see it implemented, of course, just as I'm complaining about other things that we've been offered as economic policy but not implemented.
Prince Buthelezi, 23 years after democracy, the ANC and the IFP still have so much political tensions, particularly before elections, elections such as Nutu and others. Particularly in the KZN province, people are dying. What do you think is the solution to end political conflict between the ANC and the IFP?
Because I can tell you that unless the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal change from what it is, this conflict will never be resolved. Because you see, when Madiba was released, we've already covered that ground, but he said we're going to meet. He phoned me, but that meeting didn't take place. And then when he went to the Transkei, which was the Eastern Cape then, Amakosi, traditional leaders, they asked him, they said, you and Buthelezi are such great friends. Why haven't you met up to now? You know what Madiba said? He said the leaders of the UDF and the ANC almost throttled me, saying I shouldn't meet him. So he was released in February 1990, and we were not to meet with him until the 29th of January 1991, almost a year, when we met in Durban with delegations. And one of the resolutions we passed was that from now onwards, members of the ANC and members of the Inkatha should attend joint rallies, which will be addressed by Madiba and myself. And then I was invited to a place near Maritzburg called Taylor's Halt. I was supposed to address it. So I invited Madiba. I said we should start then. We should make it a joint rally. But a few days before we were due to go there, I heard from Dr. Oscar Dlomo, our Secretary General, that Madiba was no longer coming. So I phoned Madiba. I said, Madiba, is it true that you're not coming now? He said, man, Mr. Herikwala, who was the leader of the ANC in the province of KwaZulu, of Natal as it was called then, he said he came to Shell House with a bus load of leaders from KwaZulu, from Natal, who said that I mustn't go there with you. They've always been the problem. Even later when Mr. Mbeki offered me the position of deputy president of this country, he said there was now a condition which was imposed on him by leaders of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal. You know, they said that if Mr. Mbeki was appointing me as deputy president, then I must give the premiership of KwaZulu-Natal, which actually was, at the time, was held by the IFP. Of course, I couldn't do that. So they actually scuttled that. So I didn't accept it. So that didn't happen.
What are some of the things the ANC has said about you? What are some of those things that they've accused you of, or those insults and slurs that they made against you?
Well, we amused that after the Mangosuthu contest in Parliament, during the president's vote, I actually quoted Ms. John Kandi Meng, who said, Gaja is a snake that poisons South Africa. That must be hit on the head. So I was asking that this, invasion of Mangosuthu, whether that was that. I mean,
throughout the years, they've called you a friend of the Afrikaners.
Many people know, I mean, many leaders know that I worked very closely with Mr. Tambo, very closely with Mr. Tambo, in fact, for many, many years. In fact, in '79, we had a meeting in London with a delegation of the ANC Mission in Exile and also in Inkatha for 2.5 days. We were talking about the strategies of the ANC, the policy of economic sanctions and disinvestment, and also the armed struggle. But of course, I mean, we couldn't do either, because I used to hold rallies here in Jabulani Amphitheatre and also in Cape Town and even in Mangaung. When I asked people at the rallies whether I should support economic sanctions, with one voice they would say no, we would starve.
In the Mandela administration, yes, they sifiso Buthelezi is a friend and an accomplice of the apartheid regime. How did that make you feel?
The only occasion where Madiba said something that I found hurtful was when we were at the United Nations Security Council, when it described it as a surrogate of the apartheid regime. But it didn't hurt me, because I knew that the people that were preventing us meeting were the ones that were actually wrote the speech for him. Because you see, Madiba's friendship with me never ended. Because when I was a minister under the government of national unity, we attended a SADC meeting in Maputo. And for the first time, Madiba was going overseas, was going to America. And the deputy president, Mr. Mbeki, was, I think it was in Malaysia, if I'm not mistaken. Madiba invited me to his hotel in Maputo. And he left the country to me. He appointed me on the very first occasion when he was out of the country. He left South Africa to me. And they were furious, of course. But I think that Madiba, in doing so, I don't think that one can elaborate that. You can see the extent of which you had confidence in me. You remember there was problems in Lesotho. You remember that with the troops from Botswana and South Africa, I intervened in Lesotho to stop a coup in Lesotho, at that time. The president of Nigeria, Olusegun Obasanjo, in '76, on the day that Transkei was getting independent, he sent 4 tickets for myself, for my wife, and 2 aides. On that day, because he knew, because he had gone to Robben Island as a member of the Eminent Persons Group from the Commonwealth. And when he asked me, Madiba, about me, he always repeats it. He was in South Africa recently to launch his book. Then Madiba said, Buthelezi is a freedom fighter in his own right. So he knew that. So the truth of the matter is that that's how Madiba felt about me. And that's why, I'd enter. I mean, all these head of states, like President Kaunda, President Nyerere, King of Swaziland, the Queen, they would not have allowed me if it was a lack of the government. Yeah. And they know that it is not so.
I remember the statement by former President Mandela that said, we have attempted many times to get rid of Mr. Buthelezi, and we have failed.
No. Many times we've tried to destroy him, but we have failed. He's there. We cannot ignore him. He's a formidable survivor. That's what Madiba said. Madiba was a man of integrity, really. I don't know
well, the ANC Elective Conference is in December.
Yes.
If you had to vote, you are unfortunately not a voting structure in the ANC, but if you had to vote, who would your ideal leader be?
No, really, I think I'll be poking my nose into the affairs of another party. I really can't do that. Unlike Mr. Zuma, Mr. Zuma in 2011, he invited me to the King's House, which is the official house of the president in Durban. And he said to me, at the time when my party split, he said, we respect your legacy. We think that your legacy is going to be now tarnished by all these things that people are saying. I suggested you should step down. So I said, President, we are the father of this land. I don't even resent that I belong to a different party and I belong to a different party. Because I respect you as my head of state. But unfortunately, I said, some of your very prominent leaders, like for instance Mrs. Khwale, have made statements saying that we're actually persecuting our national chairman, Ms Vennela de Maupassant, which was not true. Well, he said that he was not aware, but he did that. I didn't resent it, and I responded like that. So that's the kind of relationship that we've had, with the president, because even when he's in so many troubles, he's still sitting on the seat of the head of state, and I always insist that as long as he's sitting there as the head of state, he should be given respect that is due to him as such. We can disagree without being disagreeable.
Prince Buthelezi, my final question is, you've seen your support dwindle through the years. In 1994, you were almost the official opposition. You have anonymous strength in KZN. But do you think that your party now is on its last legs?
In what way? I mean, you've just talked about Ngutu. Is that a party that is on its last legs? When the whole of the Tuli House went there, when the cabinet went there twice, when anybody who is anybody in the leadership of the ANC went to Ngutu, is that a party on its last legs? Day before yesterday, there was what you call an election, a by-election into Pongolo, which the ward was actually held by the ANC, and they beat us with only a few votes. And even then, that was because on the border there are people who came from Swaziland who are registered as citizens here in order to get the social grants. They are the ones who made that difference, who would have won. I don't know if there's a party we can describe as being on its last legs. You know, I don't know. Of course, opinions, people are entitled to their opinions, but I really don't know whether it's that. But I can explain the dwindling too. The dwindling, money is the milk of politics. We haven't got godfathers and so on. We don't have the resources that the ANC, as our old movement has, and friends they have abroad and so on. And what is worse, of course, with the corruption, even at Ngutu, I had actually an invoice of 10 buses that the ANC had hired to go to Ngutu to make the difference in the election. I mean, just during the Ngutu thing, they've been doing all these dirty tricks as well, apart from the fact that we don't have resources. But right through, I can tell you that I've said, and I wait to be challenged by anyone, that since 1994, there's never been really a truly free and fair election in South Africa. I can quote you instances from 94 up to with every election, what happened during each election, you know, of the dirty tricks as well. So those are the factors about the dwindling that you are talking about, that, you know, we lack resources, and secondly, the ANC used the resources. The cabinet went to Ngutu armed with food parcels twice, and everywhere they do that everywhere. So that we have survived. That's why Madiba spoke like that, because it's a miracle that we're still there. We're still a factor.
Prince Buthelezi, it has been my honor to interview you this morning. Thank you for this exclusive.
Thanks very much, Madam.
Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that was my exclusive with Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, the leader of Inkatha Freedom Party. This has been Sifiso Mahlangu, a Straight Talk special. Thank you. Pray for South Africa. Channel 405 on DSTV every Sunday at 7 p.m. That was Straight. Good day.